When I was in high school, everyone told me I was childish for buying a Wii instead of an Xbox 360 or PS3.
You have a Nintendo Wii? What are you, gay?
Yeah, you should be playing a PlayStation 3 like a real gamer.
PlayStation 3?
Wow, Grandpa, who won the console wars?
The ones who win all wars, little Johnny.
But they were wrong. Dead wrong. Because the Wii had one game neither of those other consoles had. That game was Madworld. My name is Nihilistic Nerd, and I review indie and retro games. Also, I am really cool.
No, you're not.
Bro, come on, man. Of all the 7 or so action games on the Wii, there are probably 4 games people actually might remember. No More Heroes 1 and 2, which are probably the most well-known of the bunch, followed only by Oni-chan Bara, because you specifically remember seeing it at GameStop and noticing how misplaced it was amongst other Wii games. And finally, Madworld, because you love ultra-violence and still appreciate the edgy humor of yesteryear. Madworld, as the title would imply, is an absurdist comedy. It launched exclusively on the Wii in 2009 and was developed by the much-beloved R.LUM.R Games. Yes, Madworld was made by the same people that made the preachy, if not philosophical masterpiece that was Nier Automata, as well as Babylon's Fall, I guess. Yeah, R.LUM.R Games, their library is a little all over the place, but that doesn't change the fact that the same people that made this...
Wind is just a force caused by changes in temperature and atmospheric pressure and... Huh. That's actually a hard question now that I think about it. Kinda deep, really. I mean, where does the wind blow from? What do you think, 2B?
Don't know, don't care.
Also made this.
So this is the Cowboys' 10th time here at the games. He's become a regular fan favorite with his flashy moves and lightning-fast football. Howard, I hate that prick. When we fought, that dirty bastard kicked me with his spurs and tore my scrotum. You know, my nuts unraveled like 2 balls of yarn. You know how fucking long 2 balls of yarn is?
Oh, and it only gets better.
And Jack wins. I think after getting that peak at least, we all win.
Oh man, I miss when edgy humor was allowed to be malicious. People keep saying edgy is back, but it's really not. Until I can say derogatory terms like fat. Insulting minorities as well as my fellow whites, we can be a country again. The story of Madworld is not very deep, but it is insane. You take the role of Jack Kamen, an ex-military macho man, as he traverses Jefferson Island, a city that has been taken hostage and forced to participate in the Death Watch, which is a massive gladiatorial-style death sport, which is also broadcasted to the wealthy via Shock TV.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Her husband, though.
There is some social commentary here about Big Pharma and the global elite's corruption, both mind and spirit, but to be frank, that shit is all secondary. This game is about blood sports, and what better way to emphasize sports than commentators? Enter Howard Buckshot Holmes and Crease Creeley.
My name is Howard Buckshot Holmes, and along with my co-commentator, Chris Creeley, I'll be giving you a slave-by-slave account of tonight's bloodbath.
The ever-present announcers that we never actually see. These two will likely make or break your experience. They provide insight on the bosses, as well as general commentary on what's happening. The two roll off each other incredibly well, and almost everything they said gave me a chuckle the first time. Unfortunately, they start to repeat themselves very quickly. One time I had the announcers repeat the same joke 3 times in a row in rapid succession. It was annoying. Unfortunately, this problem with repetition also bleeds somewhat into the gameplay. Each level in Madworld tasks the player with earning a set number of points before challenging the boss. There are different thresholds of points that unlock bonuses like health, weapons, and extra lives. To reach these thresholds, Jack will have to kill hordes of retarded grunts in the most brutal of fashions, shoving poles into their faces, sending them into deep fryers, slamming them into spike walls, shoving them into oncoming trains, and more. Jack's moveset is lacking outside of his ability to interact with the environment. He has a few punches, grabs, and throws, so you could vary things up by roughing up a goon before grabbing him, then headbutting him, and throwing him into a conveniently placed spiked wall. Jack also has the ability to execute near-death targets in a few different ways, all of which involve you flailing around like an autistic 11-year-old experiencing sensory overload at your grandparents' house during the 1998 Thanksgiving dinner. The last thing in Jack's default arsenal is his chainsaw, which can be used by holding B and swinging the Wiimote. Jack, of course, can pick up weapons, which adds some variations to his attacks and executions, but it's really just kind of more of the same thing. They don't function mechanically different. Basically, Jack doesn't have a very big moveset, so the players are expected to experiment with his moves and environments equally. But immobilizing a guy with a trash can, then shoving 3 poles into his face, and proceeding to throw him into a jet engine, as well as immobilizing a guy with a tire, then shoving 3 poles into his face, and proceeding to throw him into a spike wall, start to lose their lusters when you've done it more than 3 times. And this is a problem, because if you want the most points for your kills, this is how you have to play. Don't get me wrong. As glorious as the violence is, and as fun as it is to gore these goons, the repetition starts to wear on my resolve. I think had they gone with a more traditional linear level design, this would have been somewhat mitigated, but that would require a completely new approach to level design. Madworld's levels are freely traversable arenas. There is no one direction to go. And to the devs' credit, they do try to break up the monotony by adding a few new hazards and bloodbath challenges. By the way, I gotta say, I really appreciate how they introduce each bloodbath challenge. The Black Baron waltzes up onto stage and explains the mechanics of the game, only to become the example himself. Bloodbath challenges are hit and miss. Some of them are fun, and some of them kinda suck. Their purpose is to net a fuck ton of points quickly if you're getting sick of a level, or you just happen to walk into range of one while it's active. On the topic of levels, the diversity within the theming of the levels is pretty vast. You won't just be fighting in downtown Jefferson Island, you'll also be fighting in Asia Town, and a haunted castle, and Area 51 for some reason. I want to tell you about the bosses, but before I do that, I gotta tell you about the camera, which was clearly designed by a man who has no eyes. The camera and its controls are downright the worst part of Madworld. The only control the player has over it is recentering it on Jack's back, which is horrible when 70% of the time the camera is simultaneously too close to Jack and too low. This makes it a frustrating experience to simply navigate, not to mention how some weapons make Jack take up 3/4 of the screen. Boss fights are lacking in everything except spectacle. You can walk up to a boss, punch, and even chainsaw him a couple times, and it really doesn't do anything. What matters in a boss fight is activating a power struggle, which is just a quick time event. Also, if you fail the quick time event, you take damage. There are a couple bosses with some extra gimmicks, but at the end of the day, all of the bosses are style over substance, which doesn't make the victories feel very meaningful. To this day, Madworld is one of the most visually distinct games in existence. The monochromatic characters and world set it apart from most games. Chunky blacks and whites create a comic book-like atmosphere, specifically something akin to the Sin City series by Frank Miller. The only time you're going to be seeing a color other than black and white is when you're spilling the blood of thugs all over the streets. And the little action words, they're sometimes yellow and orange. Also, I think there's like some enemies that bleed blue for some reason, but that's besides the point. You might think having less colors means the game is less expressive, but that's wrong and you're stupid for thinking that. This game bleeds style, quite literally at times. I think the choice of color palette played into the hardware limitations of the Wii, a console that had very few games that aged well, at least in terms of graphics. I'm playing on an emulator, and with that it's upscaled, but it goes without saying that Madworld on the Wii still looks great. While it's easy for me to discuss the graphics of Madworld, the soundtrack provides a significant challenge, as I'm not a fan of rap or hip-hop. Since it's not a genre I particularly enjoy, it's not something I can comfortably provide a objective take on, so I'll let you make up your mind yourself. Of course, this is a personal bias, but I feel like metal or hard rock would have worked better here. But at the same time, I can appreciate that Platinum tried to do something different with this one. And after listening to the OST, I can say it's actually not too bad. Madworld is a game that could not release in 2025 America. It would be boycotted by the most annoying people you know. And that kind of makes it timeless to me. I do believe the game is very repetitive, and the lack of camera control does make certain parts of this game incredibly frustrating. But at the same time, I really love the idea of having a playground where I can find new ways to brutalize a bunch of faceless weirdos. One of the things I love about Madworld is it is not safe edgy. It's actually edgy. It doesn't pull any punches, and its absurd premise is surprisingly grounded enough in reality to make it relatable. I mean, it's already been confirmed that there is at least one island where the global elite meets to fuck kids. So, is it really that far of a stretch to think that they wouldn't form some sort of gladiatorial death sport and gamble their endless wealth on it? Thanks for watching my video. My name's Nihilistic Nerd, and I'm going to bed.